What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew Oliva and I'd love to review movies. If you haven't already, please leave a like down below and hit subscribe. It helps me out so much. 2022 is coming to an end and we've had some great movies come out this year, and I'm going to have a list coming out in a couple of days where I share some of my favorite movies of 2022. But 2022 also gave us some movies that were not so great. So I'm going to spend this video talking about the 10 worst movies, or my least favorite movies, of 2022. Now, there are some movies on this list like Halloween Ends or Disenchanted or the new Hotel Transylvania movie that I did not like. Those are just some honorable mentions and they're not on my top 10 list, but there were 10 worst movies that I thought were worse than those movies. So number 10 is The Bubble. Now, this is a Netflix original comedy directed by Judd Apatow, which came out earlier this year on Netflix. And it has a huge cast with Pedro Pascal, Karen Gillan, so many great actors in this movie. And it's directed by Judd Apatow, who directed my favorite comedy of all time, King of Staten Island, came out I think 2 years ago. It's a brilliant comedy with so much emotion, and I was hoping he'd bring that caliber of film to this movie, but unfortunately that wasn't it, and this was just a really unfunny, kind of dreadful movie to sit through. I didn't find the humor funny, I didn't find the plot entertaining, and it just didn't work for me. Up next is a Madea Homecoming. Now this came out on Netflix earlier this year, and I find the Madea franchise to be hit or miss. I could have fun with some of them, but most of them are a miss for me, and this movie was fine. Like, the humor wasn't great, but it got a few chuckles out of me. But it's when we get into the third act, when there's a twist reveal, and it just ruined the entire movie for me. It's a ridiculous twist, didn't make any sense, it didn't need it, and it felt unnecessary. So that ruined the entire experience for me, and that's why it's on this list. Up next is Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. Now, I hate putting a kids movie on here because I know I'm not the target audience for this movie, but I watched it and I didn't have a good time watching it. It stars Michael Cera and Samuel L. Jackson, and the voice work is fine. It's nothing great, but where it failed was the humor and the storytelling style that they chose. They tried to copy Blazing Saddles, not just with the story, which it is a direct copy from the story, but also with the style of humor. They tried to copy that meta humor that Blazing Saddles had, but that just didn't work for this type of style of animation and the storytelling that they were going for, and it just didn't work. And I just didn't have fun watching it. It was just a very generic animated movie at best. And I know some kids will probably like this movie. I didn't. Up next is my most disappointing movie of 2022, and that is Jurassic World Dominion. Now, I love like almost every Jurassic Park movie. I think the second one is pretty good. I even like the third one. I enjoy Jurassic World. I even like Fallen Kingdom. But this movie tanked it. Like, you just had to make it entertaining, a fun movie, just show us some scenarios with dinosaurs roaming the earth. They didn't do that. Instead they gave us this plot about mutated bugs and evil tech scientist billionaires, some outrageous globetrotting adventures that weren't needed, and it just didn't feel like a Jurassic Park movie. Instead of going out into the open world, they decided to put us in this other contained area with dinosaurs in it, and it just wasn't fun. We've seen all of this before. We wanted to see something new. We wanted to see dinosaurs out in the real world, and it was very disappointing to me. I was dreading the entire time watching this movie in theaters, and at best, this movie is a fun, put on the back, ignore it type of movie, but that's not great for a movie that closes a great franchise. Up next is Disney's Pinocchio. Now, in a couple days, I'm going to do a best of the year ranking, and you're going to see a different Pinocchio on this list. But unlike that Pinocchio, this movie is void of any imagination, it's void of any humor or any charm that the first movie had. This movie attempts to give Geppetto a backstory, but it fails in where Del Toro's Pinocchio succeeds. And it just was a bland, kind of creepy, movie. The CGI on Pinocchio is not good. They didn't change much from the story. What they did change little things just so they could say they changed some stuff. Like, Monstro isn't a whale, it's like this giant tentacle creature. They changed some other stuff. It just didn't work. They tried to put modern humor in it, and that just didn't work for this live-action Pinocchio, unfortunately. But my fifth least favorite movie of 2022 is Morbius. It's bad. What can I say about Morbius? That hasn't been said already. It's not a good movie. It's a jumbled mess, disjointed mess. Don't watch it. Up next is The In-Between. Now, this is a romance, supernatural type movie. starring Joey King, and it's not great. What the biggest problem with this movie is that it doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be this romance movie or this supernatural movie about the afterlife and grief. And all these different themes, all these different tones clash, and it just makes for this very jumbled, this very kind of depressing movie that I just didn't really enjoy. Like, sure, I get some people might enjoy this movie, but I just didn't like it. I didn't get it. And I just found myself depressed by the end of this movie. My third least favorite movie of 2022 is The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. Now, I couldn't even finish this movie. I put it on twice, and I tried to watch it twice, and I fell asleep twice. This movie just isn't good. It doesn't have an interesting plot. It doesn't have good animation, and the voice cast isn't there. The only saving grace is Simon Pegg, who does his best with the material given, but even then, it's a very disappointing movie and a franchise that should have died a long time ago. But my second least favorite movie of 2022 is Love and Gelato. Now, this is a movie that was on Netflix earlier this year, and I bet no one saw this. I just scrolled upon it one day, and I'm like, I'll give it a watch. And it was a dreadful movie to sit through. I don't know why I sat through the entire time, but I was dreading it. It was just, the characters are awful. The chemistry between the actors was not great. And it's just a plot we've seen so many times before, and it's done very poorly. It's just a very forgettable movie, and it's one that you could definitely skip out on. But my number one least favorite movie of 2022 is Rob Zombie's The Munsters. Now, I didn't know what to expect from this movie. I liked the first teaser trailer that they put out, but then they released a second trailer that I watched 2 seconds of and was like, this doesn't look good, so I was really nervous. I was hoping maybe Rob Zombie could surprise us, but unfortunately, this was just a very awkward tonal mess, and it felt like a bunch of bits thrown in together. It felt like a 2-year-old wrote the script. The humor was bad, the acting wasn't great, the set design was okay, but it felt very cheap. Everything about this movie felt cheap, and it's just not a movie that I really enjoyed watching. It's another movie that I just wanted to be over. And the biggest problem is that there isn't a plot. Like I said earlier, it felt like a 4-year-old wrote the script, and it's void of any plot, any character development, and the humor is just very awkward. And I don't know what I expected from this movie, but I expected something better. Well, that is my list of my least favorite movies of 2022. Now I'm going to have another video coming out in a couple days where I share some of the best movies of 2022. Like always, guys, share your thoughts down below in the comments, and have a great day.